I'll share some upcoming announcements. We've got a few exciting things coming up pretty soon. Look out for a beta of EdgeDB 4.0. That should be early next week. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Also, if you haven't yet registered for our Developer Day event, there's a banner at the top of our website that you can click. Also, a button at the top of our website, edgedb.com. Go there and register for that event. I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff there. You're going to be hearing from some companies that are building on top of EdgeDB. At least two of those companies are also hiring. So if you would like to be gainfully employed working with EdgeDB, then that's maybe a way you could achieve that. Let's see. There's also going to be, we'll be doing swag giveaways during that event. So if you want an EdgeDB t-shirt, there may be an opportunity for you to win something like that. So yeah, go to edgedb.com, hit the banner at the top of the page, and register for that event. That's going to be on November 1st. Cloud beta is still running, so you can still, can they still sign up for that? At the very least, you can go into the cloud channel and request access.
November 1st is the official launch day for cloud, but before that we'll be slowly opening, putting it up for people who are interested in testing larger instances. I want to get in earlier, a little bit earlier, so
Nice.
early access.
Nice.
Even though it's just a few weeks, but
yeah, November 1st, a big day. EdgeDB 4.0, cloud, general availability, and developer day. Should be a lot of fun.
Can't wait.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We have a question, it looks like. I'm going to invite the user onto the stage.
Yes. Hey, everyone.
Hey there.
Some lights here.
Oh, no problem.
So yeah, I've been using EdgeDB since like July, and actually next week I was planning to basically launch with EdgeDB Cloud. I believe I talked like with a founder, and he mentioned that you're still like doing some things on the infrastructure side, but like my question is basically how safe is it if I still do a release next week for like it's a production release, but I'm not going to share it on like social media just in case like things go crazy and like EdgeDB just shuts down. And like at which point do you think it's like actually doable to do a release with EdgeDB Cloud? Because like for example, one of the issues that I had is at some point my instance just got shut down because I think I passed some egress fees or something. So like I want to avoid that. And again, I'm like open to paying. So.
Yes. So the instances that are currently in testing and have been available for a couple of months now are what's essentially going to be the free tier instances moving forward, which do have caps on egress, on data transfer out of EdgeDB, which is mostly dictated by the provider data egress costs, which are quite high. By provider, of course, mean AWS. The good news is that the paid tier instances are metered, so you're paying as you go for that egress, and the price we're setting is essentially just our price, more or less, for what we pay for that traffic. We're just passing it on to you, so it's nothing unusual there. And that is, right now, it's basically we're testing that. All of that functionality is going to be available November 1st.
But what about next week? Is it possible to do next week? Or like even like in limited capacity? Because like November 1st is a bit too late for our case. I'm willing to take a risk. Like it's okay to.
Yeah. So as soon as that thing actually is in production. And by thing, I mean all the necessary support for that class of instances will let you know. And basically, we'll go and provide your payment details, and that's
Okay,
it.
amazing. So that's exactly, okay. So perfect.
Which should happen next week.
Okay, that sounds amazing. Yeah, if anything, I'll just raise my hand, but thanks.
Oh, sure. Hey,
You're
before
welcome.
you go, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're building? Is it something you can share, or is it
Yeah,
something
of
that?
course, actually. I mean, I'd love to.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I'm going live right now. So the thing I'm building is it's a learning project. So you can see the screen, right? Everything. Okay.
Yes.
So the landing page is going to look something like this. So it will do one of the topics that we have. So I want to learn 3D printing. If I refresh, it will be a new topic. And this undefined here are going to be real topics. So for example, like it could be like physics is related to chemistry and so on. And the idea is that the connections are actually measured by, I don't know if you know a tool called Obsidian. So the Obsidian is basically a Markdown editor, and you can reference other files to it. So for example, I have a reference from this file to Markdown. And let's say this file is, I don't know, like JavaScript, for example. And if a lot of people say that JavaScript is related to Markdown. In EdgeDB terms, we're going to have like a strength of a signal from this topic to this topic, and it's going to be a number. And the higher the number, the stronger the connection. And we're going to show basically stronger connections in here. So that's like actually the perfect use case for EdgeDB. I mean, amongst other things, but so everything is like super graphed. And if you want to go inside the topic, you're gonna open a page like this. And so this is going to be a topic page. So in this case, it's a user experience design topic. And a topic has, so first of all, you can mark a topic as to learn, learning, or learned, which is like a similar thing as how you can do in Goodreads. You can mark books to read, or in IMDb, like movies to watch. And also each of the topics has a guide, and a guide has a bunch of sections, and a section has a bunch of links inside of it. A section can have like an ordered list of links or unordered. So this one is an ordered one because, like, for example, you can take like, for example, this is EdgeDB. So like this is EdgeDB topic, and intro to EdgeDB, it will say read the EdgeDB docs, then watch this lecture by, or like watch this talk by EdgeDB like founder, for example. Like the idea is that this topic can be improved by community, and the way that happens is you press this improve guide, and this is what I'm working on right now. Basically, is inside improve guide, you can basically drag and drop links around, and then you can add new links. You can, for example, and then you press submit changes, and this new guide is going to be essentially like a pull request. Because people don't have right access to the guides, only moderators do, and then moderators will be the ones who are going to be picking which changes are good, basically, and they're going to be responsible for merging in changes and making the guide the best it can be. And that's basically the kind of like the learning side, but like in the future, the platform like will grow to like many more things. But this is what we're launching with, hopefully next week. And actually, the other cool thing is that this is what I love about EdgeDB is like if I go here. So like, for example, this is like one of the topics. So like I'm referencing a 3D printing topic, which has like a name. It has like a pretty name. So this is this one. It has a summary, and it has a bunch of sections, and everything is like an EdgeDB like native object. And a section has a bunch of links, and these links are it's a structure called like basically global. It's called a global link. So like in so basically type global link, and so all the links are mapped by a unique URL. So what this allows you to do is that if I want to, for example, say that I'm kind of doing this topic like this link right now, I just press this button, and what happens is a user. So if I go to a user has liked links, for example, and it's a multi of liked links of a global link, and that means that this user is like doing something to this link, to this object. And again, like this stuff, like I honestly wouldn't even know how to do it in Postgres or SQLite. I actually used SQLite before HDB, but like whenever I had to do any kind of like joins, I was just like, it was a pain. And so like it's actually kind of crazy how much like this kind of stuff abstracts. Actually, recently I was talking to I forgot his name. I think like the HDB
Maybe Scott.
HDBGS. Yeah, Scott, I think. And
Yeah.
he showed me like a really cool feature where you can do you can basically attach like metadata to the link to the link between objects, and that's super cool. I mean, I haven't like delved deep into that, but the fact that you can do that is like kind of crazy. And in fact, actually, the problem that was solving could not be done in a way without it, which is also kind of crazy. I mean, without like a lot of complexity.
Yeah.
But
that's
kind
cool.
of like basically what I'm building.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is that actually the project is like fully open source. So like one of the other cool things I think for EdgeDB specifically is that this project is like one of the largest open source projects on GitHub. So it's like top 1,000 projects, and it's gonna grow. Like I'm hoping it reaches like top 100. And the cool thing there is that we will make the edge, like basically the whole, like a lot of the focus is on developer experience. So like we have like one command and you get start running immediately. So like one of the commands, for example, is going to like seed the EdgeDB database with like seed data, and then you can start hacking away like immediately. And I mean, I genuinely hope it introduces more people to EdgeDB. Like my only wish for EdgeDB right now is there's like a lot of Postgres plugins and stuff like this that I would wish I could like use. Like for example, like I know that EdgeDB supports PG vector, but like there's like different variations of like people like make a new PG vector, for example, but like I cannot use it, and that's kind of annoying. I wish like that like the fact that like basically I want to have access to the full Postgres ecosystem. And yeah, again, like I don't mind learning to write like bindings, even if it's like complex, but like I just want to have access to that. So and like some people are building, for example, time series databases on top of Postgres. Like some people, for example, do make it so that like certain queries are really fast on Postgres that are not like natively fast. Again, that would be really cool if you could do that, like, and like kind of let users be able to do that. I guess that's also your focus, but that's like that's what I'd be excited about.
Yeah, Elvis, is it, or how feasible is it, I guess, for our users to expose Postgres extensions in EdgeDB as a contribution?
EdgeDB Cloud.
Well, that's our EdgeDB Cloud. EdgeDB Cloud. Well, EdgeDB Cloud is it's kind of a little bit of an orthogonal question here. Generally, it's our intent to make it so that you can bring in your Postgres extension, write a wrapper for it that would make it EdgeDB type safe, essentially, right? Wrap the functions and types if needed, and have it working. It's for most extensions, it's actually fairly straightforward. It is not straightforward for extensions that add a lot of new types and functions and operators and all of that, because you need to essentially express all of that in terms of EdgeDB, the way EdgeDB expects it to see. But for cloud, we will be eventually adding support for bringing in extensions that are either like well established and supported, so we'll just have them enabled for Postgres instances that are running in the cloud. So there will be a curated selection. And a little bit further out, it is actually possible to build extensions for Postgres in a way that you essentially compile the binary extension just in time, right? So there are ways to do that, but people are like almost bringing the entire Rust compiler in the form of a Postgres extension, so you can write a bunch of code in Rust and then have that being your Postgres extension. So yeah, a lot of the foundations that are needed for that are already essentially in, right? The extension system, our module system, right? The namespace stuff that is very elaborate was always designed with that in mind. So there's like a marketplace of plugins, extensions, and whatnot that you can easily install. Right, so it's at some point the vision is that you can do like EdgeDB extension install
Yeah, so like
and
on
just
my side,
downloads some
yeah.
package somewhere and installs it, and it just works.
Yeah, on my side, basically, what I described in terms of features, one of the cool features we're gonna have is that a user will have a profile, and a user will have a bunch of notes and stuff, and we're basically going to be providing ChatGPT access to their entire like knowledge base with like privacy controls. So you have like public access where anyone can ask like your like public data, and you have like friends and family, and like for example, someone can ask like where has Elvis been like last year, and it will like kind of search over the more private data stuff, and that's going to be using PG Vector. I still have to read like the two articles that you wrote, but I hope that I think that yeah, there's also like Cloudflare released their own vector store, so that's kind of interesting as well, but. Like actually, one other question is I'm curious. Like, what is the value of using PG Vector specifically? Is that the vectors are stored like near the database? Basically, is if what I understand. Um, like because
They are stored in the database.
oh, so they're
right?
stored inside the database, and you're basically making a query, and it will like do the computation for like similarity stuff, and then it will just return the answer. Okay. Okay, that's sick.
Well,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
that's the whole point here, is that there is Postgres is great in a sense that you can bring in your indexes and extensions essentially. So you can tailor the index structure, index performance to a particular data type, which in this case is vectors, floating point vectors, which makes Postgres essentially an Uber database. So the only thing that's not as good about Postgres and many databases in general is the user interface, right? Which is what EdgeDB is all about.
I think yeah, my migrations are always my pain point. Like migrations and joins were like my two always pain points. And I think actually EdgeDB solves migrations like really well. And joins like basically yeah, I don't have to think about that. I just have to it was a bit tricky to come terms like with the syntax with the query builder, but it's after you get the further hurdles, it makes sense. So one common pattern I found to like develop fast on with HDB is I have like a CLI.ts, and then basically it's like a function main, and I usually just do like I have a bun command, and I just do like bun run db. This is just my like bun run db, and I literally just run a bunch of queries. So like I have so I have a setup called like I basically have inside a folder called CRUD, like create, read, update, delete, and for each of the objects I basically create a bunch of functions doing like various things, and if I want to test it out, I literally just like call it in. It will like auto-complete it, and like it's super fast to iterate basically, because you can also chain them, like you can do crazy things. And the other cool thing that I found is like to move fast, you don't think about performance. Basically it's okay to write queries that are like doing multiple passes or something, and then basically and only then do you actually like improve on it. And I find that like super nice. Like even like doing, for example, doing a map, even like a regular map, it's okay. If it works, it works. And then yeah, like because there are certain things in again in HDB are not as trivial. Like for example, like doing 4 like loops over sets of data. At least I found it to be yeah, the syntax is kind of weird. At least on the JavaScript query builder side. So.
And how would you improve it?
Okay.
I don't know actually. I feel like a lot of it is just inherent complexity.
Sure.
Like a lot of it is just like what I mean by harder. It's just different. Like it does not feel like a map. So it's more like a function, and you have to like it's just different. So I wouldn't even say it's complex.
Yeah, that makes sense. One more question that's sort of just selfish for me. I'm curious. What is the scope of the topics that you're going to cover on your site? Is there a limited scope, or is it extremely broad?
So we are launching with 1,050 topics, and those are going to be like high class, high quality topic. HDB is one of those topics. Like database is one of those topics, and then the idea is if you're, for example, like the way learnanything.xyz / a topic that we don't currently have, that's still going to be a topic that people can learn. It's going to be just basically an empty topic. And in HDB schema, we basically each topic has a property called verified. And if all the verified topics are going to be those 1,050, and then we're going to grow and grow and grow to the topics. But yeah, the idea, the scope is actually to map the entire knowledge base. and do that, gradually.
Yeah.
But
that's very cool. Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
yeah, post your in the chat, if you don't mind, post the URL for your repo, so that people can look at the code that you just showed, and maybe there's some value they can derive from it. And if nothing else, it's just a cool project to look at. And it looks like, yeah, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then again, hopefully next week it will be actually like a live production database, which is so cool.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic. Yeah, and definitely report back. Tell us in the showcase channel when that's something that we can go and play with. Yeah,
I will.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for coming up.
Thank you very much. Impressive demo.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. If anyone else has questions, feel free to post them in the chat, or we can bring you up on the stage. Whatever you prefer, whatever your preference is. Looks like we got a comment about that app. Cool app. Now I'll be able to avoid having 200 tabs open and closing them without regret. Yeah, I think we've all felt that pain when the browser is gobbling up every last bit of your RAM. Oh, we've got another question. Bring another user up on stage.
It is nice to meet you. So my name is, let's see if my camera comes up, but my name is Joey Conroy, and I work for a large university-associated research center. It's called Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. We primarily do systems engineering and tackling hard technical challenges for sponsors across the U.S. government and the Department of Defense. Right now, we've been looking at transitioning an application we're working on for a certain sponsor from one database management system to another, and we did EdgeDB as one of our options in our analysis of alternatives. Mm-hmm. It's looking like that's what we want to pursue. And so my question isn't going to be a blocker for us, but it's more of a long-term good-to-know thing. Mm-hmm. We most likely will never have a use case where we will be able to support or use your cloud environment. If you aren't planning to pursue like FedRAMP authorization and to have really highly secured and authorized cloud providers. However, the self-hosted options work for us. What I would like to understand is if you have plans to monetize support, so that there's some way in the future that the sponsors we build these tools for and might integrate EdgeDB into and provide to would be able to have a contractual relationship with you that is more support oriented and less focused on the cloud side. Because one thing we're always cognizant of is building products for government ownership and so that they can sustain them over time. And so having a way for them to have some kind of relationship with you would be helpful.
Right. What do you know about plans as far as that goes, Elvis, for maybe providing support apart from cloud?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that we'll be looking to build because we are essentially building a support organization for the cloud, and in a lot of ways, support for self-hosted stuff is similar in a sense of like the technical issues you might be facing. There are no definite concrete plans right now, so I'm obviously not gonna promise like, oh yes, there's definitely something we can put in a contract tomorrow, but we want users to use EdgeDB, including in environments like government and military and whatnot. So it's of course something that we'll be looking to support.
That's helpful for now. I appreciate that.
And
sure.
So that's from the angle of like commercial official support. Obviously, like the government likes to put contracts everywhere and commitments and all of that kind of stuff. It of course works well for an organization that is a bit bigger than we are currently. But once we reach a certain size, that would make a lot of sense. But before that happens, there's like you have us essentially for free anyway. Like as in community support, more than happy to help, especially in the beginning when you're starting up. Just curious, how are you hosting it? Is this like a GovCloud type of stuff? So
Yes.
AWS?
The application is going to be deployed across 3 different security domains, unclassified, classified, and top secret, but it's all going to be in AWS enclave. So the backend is going to be Postgres on RDS.
Yeah, that should work, no problem. Essentially, if you have institutional knowledge on how to maintain Postgres, how to keep it alive and whatnot, then that should be more than enough, at least for simple cases, relatively speaking. Because EdgeDB itself usually requires very little maintenance, because it doesn't have its own state. All the state is in Postgres. So if it breaks, you can just turn it off and turn it on again, essentially, in most cases. So that's it. And yes, we do plan to support self-hosted option for alongside cloud, of course. There are no plans to hobble that in any detrimental way, because it's only open, and we're committed to open source 100%. So yeah.
It's all very, very helpful, great to hear. And honestly, EdgeDB's been a pleasure to work with. We're transitioning from an even more niche database that we were taking a risk on called TypeDB. We've been working with it for the past year, but EdgeDB is coming out strong in our analysis of alternatives.
Very cool. That's good to hear.
Right.
And you already merged in a fix for us related to that MD5 hashing that we had brought up in the help channel. So I really appreciate how quickly that was able to be resolved.
Nice.
Well, hopefully it did, because I failed to actually reproduce a fully enabled FIPS environment, because it's actually quite hard to do in a container. You still need like the kernel
But this
enabled.
morning we were able to run it all the way through on a FIPS compliant Red Hat EC2 host. So that was great.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Glad to hear that it was that easy. All right. Okay. Curious. Do you have a complicated schema? Like what sort of? Obviously, like I'm not gonna ask about details, but like how does your schema look like? Is it like a
So
graph or
this is
what?
a kind of like is an object-oriented intelligence analysis platform that allows you to create types of things that have fields, units of measure. So it's a lot of configurable metadata as well as data. And so being able to configure, complex types of things in our domain that apply constraints to how you can capture different data points throughout time. There's kind of temporal aspects. There's, you can have multiple measurements of things existing at one time that are equally truthful but have different levels of classification. So kind of the type-based orientation of EdgeQL and how composable it is has been really helpful, as well as I've really liked the way you've approached polymorphic data modeling. That's been really great. It allowed us to cut down the size of our schema even for this toy instance by about half.
Great. Awesome. Glad to hear that.
Very cool. Yeah. Thanks for coming up on the stage. If you come up with anything else while you're in the audience, feel free to come back up.
Great. I'll see you November 1st for Developer Day.
That sounds great. Look forward to seeing you there.
See you then.
All right. We have another question in the chat. Curious, at which EdgeDB version do you think EdgeDB will start being mainstream and be talked as a primary database to use, like Postgres, SQLite are mentioned now? And what big things are needed from that for that, aside from robust cloud support, full text search, and full Postgres plugin compatibility? What do you think? What do you think is the tipping point, Elvis? I mean, I guess on one level it's just users, but I guess what are the pieces of the puzzle that get the users
Yeah,
the users to the tipping point?
I think at this point it's no longer technical. I think HTTP is pretty much there in terms of feature parity, and we do plan to push HQL a little bit further with hopefully 5.0 with respect to recursive queries, which would essentially make it on par with SQL in every dimension. So yeah, so right now, essentially the issue isn't technical anymore. It's more of a promotion, marketing, and
Yeah.
word of mouth type of stuff. And of course, cloud would play a very big role in that, because one of the traditional pain points about HTTP was self-hosting. Currently, you have to self-host it, and self-hosting databases is hard.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once that roadblock is removed, I think we'll see a big jump in adoption.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's going to be our focus post November 1st. It's to drive adoption, essentially. That's all we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think cloud is really the last big sort of missing link that people are looking for to bridge the gap to EdgeDB for them. Here's a follow-up. At which version of EdgeDB can we see Copilot EdgeQL in the cloud or in the local query builder? So I guess this is like what we're talking about is, I don't know, like plain language. User starts from plain language.
So language models, right?
Yeah.
So we sort of already have are already experimenting with that, as you can see with Ask AI on the website. The challenge there with like a general purpose LLM is the training data set. Something like ChatGPT and I imagine like Copilot's model were trained mostly on things like SQL, right? So it can give you a relatively good answer if you ask, something about SQL, though not always. HQL, on the other hand, is very small in comparison of the set of data that is available on the entire internet. And so the training, at least of the current iteration of those LLMs, isn't as good, even if we tune them a little bit on our docs and on the quality of those responses is still not that good. But that's something we are aware of and are working on ways of improving that, exploring possibly using a custom, not a general purpose model or something like that, or specifically to be used in the UI that is more HTTP aware and has been trained specifically for HTTP. But all of that is, of course, not in the immediate future. So for now, we'll just see if we can tune and tweak the general LLMs that we subscribe to make them work better for people. Integrating those into the UI is definitely on the to-do list.
Yeah.
I guess it just makes sense because your schema is there, and copy pasting your schema into the Ask AI window on the website isn't the most ergonomic thing to do. So yeah, there are plans for that.
Yeah. The one issue we run into with that is like the token limit. Some people's, if you have a really large schema, we're going to run into our token limit with the with OpenAI. So that adds another sort of layer of complexity there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's also that once the data set grows, right? Naturally, as more people write more code, the code pops up on GitHub and elsewhere, and as we can possibly also generate a fair amount of good quality data uh, for model consumption. Essentially, just need to figure out the logistics of that. But it's definitely one of the most interesting ways technology is evolving right now with assistance and whatnot. So
yeah,
we are and will be paying attention.
Yes. And even the features we've already rolled out, the integration into our documentation seems to have been pretty well received. So yeah, it feels like it feels like users would be interested in seeing us go further down that path. Any thoughts on having?
Well, yes. I mean,
oh, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Please continue. I was just about to say that it's definitely something that we'll be looking, and people find it useful, especially when you start learning a new thing. It's a great exploratory tool because when you ask an assistant, hey, I want to do X with this thing that I'm learning right now, it shows you a clear and hopefully correct example of how you can do it. This also teaches you of what sort of facilities are available in this tool in the database, in SQL specifically, in the schema and whatnot. So
yeah,
because otherwise you would have to scour examples and jump from page to page, necessarily diluting your attention, trying to piece things together. It doesn't always work very well, despite our best efforts to put as much information in the docs as possible. It's also kind of a double-edged sword, because if you put too much information, it becomes like too much content, right? So you need to strike a balance between being concise but also complete, in a sense.
Yeah.
That there aren't any blind spots or gaps in the docs, which I'm certain plenty in our docs currently. That's mostly because we aren't thinking about those, but maybe some people find certain things challenging to find or understand, especially if they're starting. Which is why we would be more than happy to have that feedback in Discord or elsewhere. Just don't put an issue saying, hey, I started learning EdgeDB, or wrote a project using it, and these things were hard to find or hard to grasp, or the docs weren't clear, because that's something that is very important to us, is the ability to teach EdgeDB properly.
Definitely. In the rare cases when we do get those threads, they always add a lot of items to my to-do list in a good way. It's lots of things that we probably needed to do but didn't realize we needed to do. So it's really helpful. And Dave and I, and another guy on the team, have been working the last couple of weeks to try to plug some of those holes in the documentation. So those things will hopefully improve your experience with the existing AI that we're using. And I think we've already mentioned this here before, but I'll say it again just in case. We also have some plans for how we can expose some of the helpful threads that are happening in Discord, both on the website and to the AI. And I think those, all of those efforts will, each individually marginally improve your experience from the AI that we have in place. Any thoughts on having EdgeDB Conf or some event in the future? So I think we're hoping that the November 1st event will serve as something like that. There will be a live component to it. You'll be able to come and hang out with us during the launch event, during Developer Day. Like I said, we'll be giving out some swag. We'll also be talking to people, answering questions. It's not obviously the same as an in-person event, but as a smaller team, it's difficult for us to put together something like that. That takes a lot of planning and a lot of time to make something like that work and to make it a good experience for all the participants. So I think we're kind of dipping our toes in that virtually on November 1st. You have any thoughts on that question in particular, Elvis?
Yeah, I think we will be doing events. Maybe not like a flashy conf or something like that, but we should definitely start at least doing meetups with. And we're a distributed team, so like we can do a meetup in San Francisco, or for example, you Devon can maybe organize a meetup in wherever you are at that time.
Yes.
So those things will start popping up for sure, or maybe co-hosted with some other team who are like adjacent, or like maybe one of our users or something like that.
Sure.
There is going to be a lot more community activity going forward, because like I said, it's our main focus is adoption. So we are going to be optimizing everything for adoption from now on.
Yep, true. You might be seeing EdgeDB at some other, in-person events that you go to locally too, as a component of, as content for some other meetup groups or events. That's a possibility as well. Are you thinking about making Discord content indexable by Google so that there is more content on the web, maybe a mirror? Yes, we are thinking of doing that. In fact, we're doing more than thinking. That effort is pretty far along at this point. We're not going to mirror all of our Discord content because we don't want to create a lot of noise, but we do have a mechanism that we're going to be rolling out soon that will allow us to mark threads in the Discord as helpful, and then to go in and sort of refine the information, kind of dig the gold out of those threads and expose it. And it's going to make it's going to be a quicker way for us to do what we've already been doing, which is if someone asks a question in the Discord, we look at our docs and say, okay, is this a hole in the documentation? Is there a hole we need to plug here? And then we go back and do it manually. This is a more automated process that still has, human curation on the tail end of it, so that we're not just putting lots of junk out there to be indexed by Google. Short answer is yes, and that in addition to being indexed by Google and whatever other search engines, it will also be consumed by Ask AI, by our AI feature. All right, we're coming up close on time here. We could probably take one or maybe two short questions. So if you've got a question, feel free to dump it in there. Also, I didn't mean to monopolize that last question, Elvis, if you had any thoughts on it.
No, you covered it perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're probably a lot more informed about the state of that thing as I am.
Well, you've had other things to focus on besides exposing Discord threads, so.
No, but I
Right.
think it's a very valuable thing because it's been.
It is. It is definitely.
It's a known thing that Discord is a great tool to getting support in the first place and almost interactively in real time. But it sucks at providing like historical context because it's poorly structured and hard to search. But like we are fixing that.
Yeah, definitely. Have you noticed if learning has an impact on adoption? I mean, if users feel they have to learn too much specific stuff to use EdgeDB.
So it is definitely a component of adoption. It's a lot easier to implement something that mimics something that people already know. So like, oh, we're just another SQL database, or oh, we're basically a fork of Postgres. People just bring in their existing tools and don't have to learn new stuff and whatnot. So that component certainly is there. But on the other hand, it also exists pretty much in any piece of new technology that you adopt in your stack. Like even as something as it doesn't need to be a major piece, but it could be like which form you use, right? If you're using like a traditional stack with like something like Postgres, and then you put something like Prisma or Drizzle on it, you have to learn Prisma and Drizzle and all the aspects of that, the caveats, the surprises, the performance, and all of that. So in many ways, it's not different from that.
Yeah. I think there's always a balance to find, and we can be exactly like SQL, which a lot of people are already familiar with, but then there's no reason to use EdgeDB, or we can change everything, and then there's this massive learning curve, and we're somewhere in the middle there, and no matter where we pick, we're gonna, for some people it's going to be too far from SQL. For some people it's going to be too close, and they're going to want more changes. And I think it's more art than science, trying to figure out where is the right place on that spectrum to sit.
Well, yes, we definitely do try very hard to make the learning curve as smooth as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just there's inevitable inherent complexity of what a general purpose advanced database is. So you have to learn a lot of things, but hopefully we will make it so that you learn them at your own pace, and that all the tools that we put out there help you in that process as much as possible. So you don't. Obviously, it's not a perfect process, and everyone approaches their problems from their background, their assumptions, biases, and whatnot. But
yeah, we'll do one more question and then close up for the day. What is observability like in relation to EdgeDB Cloud?
Observability, as in, we do have a lot of internal observability, of course, and we will be working on user visible observability as well. What form that will be in is not specified yet. At the very least, it's likely that we'll be exposing something like the standard Prometheus style metrics from your instances, so you can consume them by whatever sort of observability tooling you're using. And that's already there. I mean, the server itself exposes certain metrics, and it's already even documented somewhat. When it comes to like query performance, a query slow log, or like auto explain, all of that is also on the to-do list, with some great ideas there on how to enable you to quickly find bottlenecks. So you launch the app into production, and then some things are slow and you don't understand why and where. So this is where we are hoping to get the necessary tooling in to help you quickly get that without necessarily subscribing to like a third-party application performance monitoring tool like Sentry or something like that.
Awesome. We thank you all for joining us and hope you have an excellent weekend. And we hope to see you all on November 1st at Developer Day.
Yeah, spread the word.
Spread the word.
Bring a friend.
That's right. Free +1s for Developer Day, or +2s, however many you want.
Oh, +10s, however
+10s, yes.
Okay.
Awesome. Everybody have a great weekend.